engaging celebrity interviews, exciting updates from Christian filmmakers, movie reviews so you can choose your movies wisely, and so much more here on Faith on Film with Isaac Hernandez and Holly McClure.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to our first show of the year. I guess, Holly, we should say Happy New Year.
We should say Happy New Year. It's going to be a Happy New Year, 2026. Yay. Yeah. I know. First show. We love it. So happy.
We're starting off with a great interview that you did for the beginning of the year.
That's right. My Corby Pons is, Corby is a publicist, and this is who I've dealt with for 20 years. He's the one who will call me in or write me and say, Holly, we've got a movie coming out. What do you think of this? I've gone to junkets, because of his recommendation. Interviews we get are because of him. So he's a very important part of what Isaac and I do on this show. What I do as a film critic, and I've done as a film critic for all these years. He's been a friend, and he's been a great asset for getting good interviews. So we were talking to him, and I said, Corby, why don't we interview you? I said, I want to talk to you about how you do your job and how you choose and select movies and what's behind the scenes. And he is really the gatekeeper to what even we're getting as far as the interviews or films. He's the first one to see it. So he sees everything. Some things are good, some things are bad, some things he knows this will be good for Holly and Isaac's audience. This won't be good for their audience. That won't work. So he's the one that kind of does that as well. And he had some very interesting perspectives about Hollywood, about what's going on. And I'm glad we had him on. In fact, I want to bring Corby back on periodically to give us updates on trends, what's going on with studios, because there's such a shift in Hollywood right now with movie studios, what's taking place in Hollywood, and the Christian market. He is a faith-based Christian, publicist. So it's good to hear from him on those levels too. So I think you're going to find it very interesting because he talks about the things we've discussed on this show, but he comes from the perspective of knowing even that insider scoop on Hollywood.
All right. Well, let's take a look at the interview that Holly did with Corby.
And here with my friend who I've been working with a long time for years and years is Corby. Welcome to Faith on Film.
Well, it's such a pleasure. We've worked together for almost 20 years now. And then, I've never done an interview with you. And so I appreciate you having me on. This is such a pleasure for me.
Absolutely. And I think it's an important perspective because you're the one that's kind of the filter between what we get for interviews, and you have to go see everything and deal with Hollywood and deal with everything coming through there. And for some things, you're like, yeah, this is perfect for this audience. And yeah, no, it's not so much for the other audience. So how is your life? Do you have to watch everything that comes through? Are you selective too? Give us some background on what you do as a publicist.
Yeah. So for the past almost 20 years, we've worked on over 375 films or series. Over 50 of those have been Academy Award winning or Academy nominated films. And so everything that we get involved with, whether it's part of the secular or the sacred, kind of has this thread line of redemption, thoughtfulness, forgiveness. We're Christians that a lot of times work on non-Christian content because thematically, a lot of the films that we've seen or we get involved with are that. Some of the best art will come from people who necessarily aren't Christians, because I think one of the things that's happened in the past is that Christians can get stuck in a box, right? And so you get stuck in that theological box and you're not able to focus on the art. And the hard part is like, if you emphasize message over the art form, a lot of times it can turn into propaganda. And by the way, that's not Christians. That's on the right. That's on the left too. But really, when you see somebody who's in touch with the Holy Spirit, I think some of the most beautiful art is starting to come out of the Christian entertainment industry, if you will. It does help to study film and to learn how to write stories. And I think the great news now is we're seeing that everywhere. And I go back to kind of what Dallas Jenkins has done with The Chosen. And that credibility is not just in the faith space. It is global credibility with general and mainstream press in creating new models that you see the entertainment industry, Hollywood, trying to duplicate. And nobody's been able to do it very well. But when I first started, Christians were kind of like, anytime you said Christian content or Christian interviews, we were kind of thought of as the last place you go. Yeah. Now we're at the forefront. You know that because there's great Christian journalists like yourself, and you would know that. You would get the interviews. You're like, why am I not getting great? And here's what I've realized dealing with talent for years now is that they actually have a much better experience with people like you and the reporters on our site because you guys take the time. And there's also a real thoughtfulness that a lot of Christians have. Like you work with people who have MDivs, who have PhDs, who really care about what they're spending their time on. And that is definitely not the traditional media landscape right now.
No, it's not. And I'm always amazed at the bigger films that you get. And I'm like, oh, well, can we have that actor or that actress? And you're like, yeah, well, no. They go with the top tier ones, but you guys can have the producer, the director, the writer, the second unit, the AD,
the light guy,
the light guy.
I mean, we want everybody to have some attention because they spend, especially writers and directors, because they spend years of their life. However, you're also in the media landscape. You need talent, so because you got to get eyeballs on what you're doing.
Right. But the thing is, I always wonder, is talent afraid of the questions they're going to get from that religious press? Because I don't ever make people feel uncomfortable. And I always try to find an area where we can, relate, even if they're not Christian or whatever, just, where you can relate on the art or the subject or the character. And I wish they would feel safer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, and I think this is what I love about what I do, is that I think in cancel culture that we've experienced over the past few years, people are extremely afraid. But when they give an opportunity to someone like you, the experience they always have, and this is every film that we work on, they're like, wow, she was unbelievable to talk to. She really cared. She knew my background. And we're like, well, yeah, not everybody is into canceling. I think in this country, there's like 15% on the far left and 15% on the far right who do have megaphones, and they are annoying and they're trying to divide us. But the vast majority of people can have healthy conversations and find common ground. But to me, any time that somebody who is, let's say, an atheist or an agnostic or not a person of faith can talk to somebody like you or a Christian journalist and have a great experience, I know that's going to draw them closer to Christ, because we're all on a journey. Every actor, every actress, every director, we're all on these journeys. And I think when we can bridge that with somebody like you and others, it really transforms people's hearts and minds. And it's so important for us to remember that, I have seen and been part of projects where online backlash towards entertainment industry or Hollywood people can be pretty vicious. But you know what? Most people are just waking up, just trying to do their job, get a paycheck, take care of their families. And I think the more they interact with people like yourself and other journalists, they leave transformed. They leave thinking. I remember this, like we took a group of pastors' wives on the set over to Disney for Disney's Frozen a number of years ago. And I could tell there were some employees at the time who were really not sure why Disney was doing that. And I could tell they didn't want to be there. However, after this experience with all these women who are people of faith, I had at least 3 people call me and it's like, for the first time I walked into church after that experience, because it was so different than how I grew up, or somebody had been burnt by church, or just because of the perception out there. And I think the more all of us that we can all do that, especially in the media landscape, is in how hard it is, and show compassion and show grace and to just listen, I think we're in a place of real transformation, because the number of actors and actresses that we work with who have stepped forward, even off the record, saying that they are walking into church or a parish for the first time or thinking through their journey with God is unprecedented. And you and I know this, Holly. It's like 20 years ago when I started this, that was not the case.
No.
That was not the case at all.
It was not the case. It was not cool being a Christian. It was not cool being a Christian filmmaker.
Not that that's the goal, but I'm so glad that there just seems to be an openness in people's hearts. Because there was a time there where people definitely were cautious, if not outright hardened hearts. And that is changing. I think it's beautiful. So I tell the guys that I work with and stuff, like, yeah, we market movies, we work in publicity, but really we want to meet people on their journey and their faith journey. And if we can do something that can bring them closer to Christ, and also just something that can lift the burden for them in their life, that's the goal. Like, that's all that matters in this life.
That is the goal. And the thing that I also appreciate is 20 years ago. Well, first of all, The Passion, I think, changed everything. When Mel did The Passion, it changed because all of a sudden Hollywood wanted to do the Noahs and their version of Christian things, and they wanted a piece of the market. They wanted the market. And so, but I remember the first films that you would get, and we were doing, it was like, okay, well, don't tell them I'm a Christian, or can we just, da da da. And from what you've seen it go to, and then I saw, you're right, Dallas, The Chosen, and then the Irwin brothers, and Kingdom Story started coming in with some things that, oh my gosh, I can only imagine. It was just a really good movie, and I had a thing. And then we're seeing the Kendrick brothers, come in, and even though it's more Christianese it still was, got better quality. So it's funny to see that also the filmmakers, like you said, not just Hollywood's acceptance, but Christian filmmakers stepping up their game and being able to go, okay, now that's a decent movie, because there's so many that have not been. But
I never thought I would see this. And there are some, let's be clear, there's economics drives a lot of this. But with that said, there's just some really great content that are coming from people of faith. And it is not just economics. There are people who are truly invested into it for kind of those kingdom reasons, and to really want to reach people kind of where they are and tell stories. And some of those stories are G stories, and their animations and their shorts or their docuseries. And some of them are a little more gritty, and, they may be R-rated. We talk a lot to studios and streamers kind of about the clock. There's what you watch with your kids kind of maybe after school or on the weekends. There's those co-viewing family films that you watch together. And then there's also what mom and dad watch in the evening that may have a little more grittiness to it. And that's fine. I mean, life is messy. The Bible is about messy people too, right?
Yes.
And so I love that we're in this era where so much of the films and the stories that are finally getting made by big studio streamers, broadcasters ever made are for people of faith, or they have a faith angle to them.
Wow.
And that is something I really didn't think I would see in my career in doing this. And I know you've been doing this, for many years yourself.
Yes.
And so it's kind of caught me off guard, because it's everyone. It's not just driven by money. I think that's the cynical side of me, is like, because there was that time we worked on Noah and Exodus and those films, and those were driven by money. And I think the product kind of showed from those films that they weren't rooted in really what the audience cares about, or rooted kind of in people's faith in making those, that the origin of those stories didn't come out of writers who were sitting down and really praying about what they were making. It was to make a fast buck, and that didn't work. And so I think that has really changed. And not to say that doesn't exist. It does. But I just go back to, I'm just kind of overwhelmed, especially I thought post-COVID that none of this was going to get made, to be honest. I felt like, how politicized everything had become, that the studios and streamers were going to move away from kind of more faith-oriented content, and that's not the case at all.
Yeah. And isn't that like God? To kind of use the thing.
What do I know?
To use what you thought was going to destroy the industry, and like, oh, well, we have no chance. And then all of a sudden, what's surfacing? And it corrects me up to see how many people now, I mean, like the Noah thing was an example. Yes, it was financial, but it was also, they don't understand the Christian audience. They just want to mimic it. So if you can mimic making what they think is a faith film, what they think is a Christian film, if they can mimic that and they think, okay, we did it. And then those fail, or those don't, do well.
Yeah.
And then they see the Christians who are doing it and have that message in there, like the I Can Only Imagine, like those. And then they're like huge successes,
It's such a good point. So from a marketing perspective, it usually is about who's behind the content. Credibility is everything, particularly in the faith space, and rightfully so. People have been burned so many times. You've had certain biblical narratives or other dramas that have not been told very well, and they've been by non-believers. And Christians are protective about especially biblical narratives, so it's so important that who's ever behind these, that they get out front and talk about their faith. And that has changed. That was not the case, even 10 years ago, where even if it was in the faith space, that you would have the filmmakers kind of out front saying, oh, trust me, because I am a person of faith. And today, everybody does that. Like it's central. And I like it's just kind of baffling to me in some regards that this has happened. And it's also really great for anybody who is a Christian that this is a great time to be involved with storytelling of all shapes and forms. And the one thing I want to emphasize is my concern right now is humans have kind of been telling these stories for about 150,000 years. And whether that's on the stage, whether that's in front of a fire, and my concern is that TikTok and YouTube have degraded it now down to like just a couple sound bites or a clip or an image. And I don't want to lose that. The Bible's the greatest story. The Jesus story is the greatest story ever told. I believe God loves stories, and it's not that he can't use social media and stuff like that, but we need to be careful. And we need to continue and to invest in kind of long form content that can bring people together from all different walks of life. That is a narrative features, and not just some 60-second TikTok video or YouTube clip or something, because that does concern me, because we are a species and God created us, I believe, to tell stories.
Yes, and I think that actually there's going to be rebellion against that. Because I've been doing this since the '90s, so I've seen.
Love it.
I feel like old. I feel so old. Okay, for one thing, Last Temptation of Christ, Martin Scorsese. I remember when everyone rebelled, the church, the Christians picketed against that movie because it was so sacrilegious, right? Okay, who's on Fox Faith now doing a whole series of
This is what I'm saying.
Martin Scorsese, because he realized you couldn't make money off the Christians then, but I've got a new way to do it. And so they're so young, people don't have a memory. There's probably no one over 30 even writing these things up there to realize, to do any research, to realize, oh, wow, he was the most protested against director that did the most heretic heresy movie.
Yeah.
And now everyone's like, oh, they're so great. He's doing Saints. I don't know. Maybe he's had a conversion, but then
and I think that's important for us to remember too, is that he made that when he was younger, and he's been on a journey, and his faith is so sincere. And if you want to, Apple has a docuseries right now called Mr. Scorsese, and he's very explicit about his Christian faith. Now he grew up very Jesuit and Catholic. He hears that, but he loves Christ. And so I think it's also important to us as Christians in particular, and I can't speak for the secular world because I'm a Christian,
right,
that we be careful when we go out and are on the attack, because these guys are on their journeys too. And let's remember that God will use them and even redeem things that they have done. And I have worked on, I think Silence is one of the most profound films of faith ever created that Scorsese did. And I think at this point in his career, he's going to continue to make these. But if you look at the body of his work, it really is about what he focuses on is the depravity of man. And he captures it so well. And so he also captures redemption very well, too, in The Saint. So we're big fans of kind of Scorsese and his work, but that is not, for kids. And so we want to be clear about that. And so anything we get involved with, we try to be very explicit about what it is and what it's not, who it's for and who it's not, because, the last thing we'd ever want to do is just direct people in the wrong direction. And then, there's bitterness or animosity that they have been exploited by the marketing guys.
Well, and again, you give us some things, then we have to do the same thing, Isaac and I, on our show. It's like, okay, we explain to the audience, there may be some language in this, or there may be some things that, but the message is there. Sometimes you have to overlook some of the things and if that offends you and you don't want to watch that as an adult or your child, whatever, well, that's
right.
where they're
totally. But you can't let the great be the enemy of the good.
Yes.
And sometimes that happens, but I get it. And especially kind of how politicized everything has become, especially during COVID, right after post-COVID. I don't blame you Christians for being hyper cautious. There's some really awful content out there, and it's propaganda as well. So I just think the more that Christians tap into the beauty of God's creation and the better these stories are going to continue to become. And if your focus is Christ and not so much about whatever the political talking points are of the day, I think that's going to direct you in the right way. And so, again, some of those stories are going to be gritty and maybe, even R-rated, and some of those are going to be family oriented. Like one of the things I love is working with writers and directors who take a blank page or a blank screen and then spend years of their lives to make something, and they take all the risk on it. And we have seen certain stories for 20 years folks have worked on it finally come into fruition, and the challenge is now with all the content is really finding distribution. So that's something we moved into, is just trying to help filmmakers navigate a real tricky distribution landscape.
Oh, and that's
everything.
Funding and distribution. Those are the two things that everyone's got the whole thing, to worry about. Okay, last few minutes that we have, any films that are highlight. You've worked on so many. Any ones that stick out in your mind that are good recommendations for, and even for families or for not even families, not for kids, even for just adults. Are there any that are coming up? Or are there any that you want to point out that are even right now that are just great to watch that people may not be aware of?
Yeah, I mean, goodness, there's so much kind of going into the holiday season. I would look at Wake Up Dead Man, Knives Out series on Netflix by Rian Johnson, who grew up in the church. I would look at Amazon's Prime Video's Merv. Roma Downey created that. Zooey Deschanel stars in it. Great holiday movie. I'd also look at Merchants of Joy. Is a documentary about the New York Christmas tree vendors, and just such an incredible message there. And the young filmmaker, she risked it all, her own life savings to make that. And she grew up inside of the church. I would also look at EWTN Plus upcoming series, Seeking Beauty with David Henry, that we've never seen a travel series that explores the spirituality and the impact of Christianity on culture. I mean, I can go all day. Nuremberg, which is Michael Shannon, Rami Malek, Russell Crowe. That is a great one for adults over the holiday if you're into history. So it's there really is on all these platforms. There's kind of something for everyone.
For everyone. And even not just for the holidays, just for, like I said, what's coming up. I love that David's got his series coming up.
Oh, sorry. And the David animation, let me be clear. I think that's one of the most beautiful animations. I'm not working on that. It's one of the most beautiful animations I've ever seen in my life. It's absolutely stunning.
Yes, but not even for holidays. Just well, listen, we're gonna have you back on, and I tell you what,
I love getting my recommendations. I love.
Yes,
I got a guy who works with me. We just we curate our list, but we do it for parents. We'll do it for singles. We'll do it for kids. We'll do it for co-viewing opportunities.
Okay. Come back in January and let's have you come on and let's have you give.
Yeah, but kick off the new year and go through.
Kick off the new year.
Loaded next year. There's so much good content. It's unbelievable.
I'm excited about that.
I can't believe it.
I'm excited for that, Corby. We are in exciting times, and finally, we're both working really hard, and there's a lot to talk about.
Well, you're one of the few journalists that had the credibility as a Christian that studios and streamers trusted because you weren't weird. Let's be honest. There's been some weird folks in the faith space. I get it. I've grown up around it. I'm sure people think I'm weird too, to an extent. But you've also just got to be somebody who's accessible, and it's all about trust.
Right. Thank you for that compliment. I appreciate that, because I definitely know what that means, and I don't want to be the weird one.
For sure. Well, and that's how we are able to be in this business, because of folks like you. So thank you.
You're so welcome, Corby. Thanks for spending time with us, and we're going to have you back.
It's a pleasure.
What's coming out.
All right. Thank you.
What makes Capernaum Studios different from other movie studios? We believe in empowering filmmakers to make stories that matter, inspire, uplift, and transform lives. From historically authentic sets to state-of-the-art, fully equipped sound stages, we offer immersive LED and green screen stages, ICVFX virtual production, period to modern sets, a first-century village featured in The Chosen, and much more. We provide everything filmmakers need to focus on what matters in making their vision a reality, producing meaningful content affordably without compromising creativity. Discovering what's possible when creativity meets purpose. Capernaum Studios, empowering filmmakers to make dreams a reality.
If you're looking for a movie with nostalgic charm and a great message, you got to see Jesus Freaks. It is based on a true story about love, faith, and the power of the Holy Spirit that rocked the world 50 years ago during the Jesus Revolution. Written and directed by Nina May, it features Sam and Kevin Sorbo. It is available at JesusFreaksMovie.com and Amazon Prime. I'm telling you, you're gonna love this movie. Get it today at JesusFreaksMovie.com or Amazon. Holly, I've always enjoyed your interviews, but there was something special about this one. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Isaac. Thank you. Yeah, you know what? I really like his perspective, and I was kind of surprised because I've told you the story about Martin Scorsese and Last Temptation of Christ, and how I was not happy that he was directing these movies for Christians. I thought he was kind of fleecing the flock, so to speak, by having these shows about the saints on Fox Faith. I feel like he was just taking advantage of Christians, so I was not real happy with him. And I was very surprised to hear him say that no, he's had a change of heart, a turn of event. Isaac, I think this is important, that some of these directors and Hollywood people, as they're getting older, as they're seeing the value of life, as they're seeing what really matters now, and how faith is coming more into their life, probably because of kids, grandkids, who knows. But I was encouraged to hear that. Martin Scorsese is a pretty big director and influence in Hollywood. And if he has found the Lord, so to speak, and his religion again, and he's wanting to do something good, I'm almost wondering if it was like a redemptive thing. Like to redeem what he had done with Last Temptation of Christ, he's done these. You almost wonder if that's somewhere. We'll never know, I guess. But I'm encouraged to see that more and more now, like what Corby said, it wasn't cool to believe in God or be a Christian in Hollywood. You didn't talk about it in the business to anybody. Well, now it's the cool thing. Now it's changed. Now everybody wants to be, oh yeah, you can. And even though Christianity is still persecuted and still getting persecuted around the world with churches and faith and people, Hollywood is recognizing there's an audience there, and there's a faith audience there. The House of David has proven that, and so many other productions. So they're wanting to jump on board now and be part of it. So I'm glad. I'm glad to hear the influence is spreading.
Yeah, me too. And you know what? Maybe even another perspective to take on this would be that even if he hadn't changed, even if there really is no change in him, but the fact that he's doing this is a good thing, because these movies obviously bring out a message that I think the world needs to hear. So I'm hoping that I'm going to take it by faith that he did in fact change. But even if he didn't, I'm glad he's doing what he's doing.
Exactly. And I guess we have to be, I was like, oh, I can't believe he's doing this. But you know what? Hey, if he's touching someone's life now, they're not literally, they're not, I've seen a couple of them. They're not biblically correct, so to speak, in my opinion. They're very Catholic. And I'm not saying anything against Catholic religion. I'm saying there's a different perspective sometimes that's taken by filmmakers. Under Alejandro Monteverde is one of them. In fact, 01 or 0 AD is coming out, and that's a very different perspective on faith. So I'm just saying there's some differences on maybe traditional, but still, yes, you're right. They're doing good. We're glad.
We have run out of time today, but I think this may be a subject that we may want to take up on a future show and just talk about this trend that we're seeing in that. Alrighty, well, everybody remember to check out faithonfilmtv.com. That's faithonfilmtv.com. Holly?
Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
Write to us at faithonfilmtv@gmail.com. That's faithonfilmtv@gmail.com. And follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and X at Faith on Film TV. Also, visit our website, faithonfilmtv.com. That's faithonfilmtv.com, where you'll find links to all of our past shows and much more.